So the beginning of this week's Parsha, the Torah opens up like this. Chaya Sarah shana esrim shana v'sheva shana. In the life of Sarah, which is, the Torah is now completing the life of Sarah. She's passing on in this portion immediately. So it says that she lives 100 year, 20 year, and 7 years. So Meya Shana, Esrim Shana, and Sheva Shanim, plural. So with regards to the 100 and the 20, it says a singular number, Shana. And with regards to Sheva Shanim, which is the 7 years, the plural. So again, so with regards to 120, it's the singular, which is year. And then with regards to the 7 years, it says Shanim. So the obvious question is, why for the 7 it says Shanim, and for the 7 it says years, and for the 100 and for the 20 it says year in a singular form? This is a question of any of the commentaries ask. Chasam Sofer says, one of the great commentaries writes that it has to do with that anything that has, if there's a 10, if there's a full number of 10, then it's a presence of Kedusha, of holiness. But let's see a little bit what the Zohar says and try to understand a little bit how this relates into our lives and how we can make this relatable to our lives. So the Zohar says basically that the structure of 120 and 7 corresponds to different sirot, different divine attributes, expressions in this world. Sheva Shanim corresponds to 7 years, in plural, corresponds to the 7 emotional attributes that a person has, which is called 7 midos, 7 attributes, internally and on a microcosmic level. These represent chesed is one expression, gvura is another expression. So every kindness is one form of expression, restriction is another form of expression, compassion is another form of expression. These are the person's midos, these are the person's attributes. That corresponds to the 7. 20 corresponds to the sphera of Chachma and Bina, the way they're filled and they become full 10 sphirot. And the 100 corresponds to the attribute of Keser, which is when 10 becomes 10 and you have the number 100. Let's try to unpack this idea in very simple language. There's basically the structure. The basic structure is that there are 3 dominant expressions, or 3 dominant postures that a person has. One is their emotional attributes, the way a person is relating to themselves and to others and to life in general from an emotional state. Those are called the 7 sphirot, the 7 emotional attributes. This is one posture. The second posture is the way a person functions from a place of his intellect. The intellect corresponds, is the fundamental idea of the intellect is chachma, which is wisdom. Another form that we'll say would be like the right hemisphere of the brain, and bina, which is understanding, which would be the left hemisphere of the brain. And these are the two, another posture, which a person can come to life not from a reactive place of emotions, but from an intellectual and a mindful place. The third, which is Keter, which is the crown, corresponds to the deepest reality of who we are, which is our desire and will. So let's understand how this works. Let's say a person comes to life from a place of emotion. A person comes to a place of life of emotion is they're basically living reactively, which means, let's say they're walking down the street and someone insults them, so immediately the reaction of gevura or netzach, power or victory comes into play, and the person reacts accordingly. So if a person insults you or cuts you off when you're driving or something like that, and you're upset, the reactive expression is that you show also anger or upsetness to this other person. This is obviously the lowest level of living. And here, each attribute is completely independent and separate from each other. Because when you're in a place of chesed, well, let's say we'll use it because you can understand it better in the other direction. Let's say you're in a place of gevura, you're feeling a lot of, let's say, anger. Let's say the negative expression of gevura. You're feeling a lot of anger in your life. When you're feeling a lot of anger and someone tries to tell you, by the way, you shouldn't be angry, you're trying to tell yourself, You're not going to listen because at this point you're just reactive and you're in a total mess. You're in a total space of just reactive emotions and you're full of anger. And the same thing also could be with lust and love. You're so engrossed in that particular emotion that you're not mindful in a way to balance those emotions. You're totally in that place. The best understanding of this would be like a child. A child is, let's say, feeling good. Nothing can stop them. They're feeling the best, and nothing can change that. A child is feeling in a very bad mood. You can't rationalize a child to feel in a better mood. They're not feeling good, whatever. So they're totally stuck in that particular emotion. A higher way of living is when a person introduces intelligence. A person introduces intelligence. Then, what you have then is that the Sefirot in general are 10. But when the emotions are each one independent, so they're each 7 on their own. When you introduce Moichin, another way of looking at it is that a person becomes mindful. A person says, okay, I'm not going to live in a reactive place. And I'm not just going to, whatever the situation, I'm just going to be reactive to that situation and live in autopilot. But I'm going to bring mindfulness. I'm going to bring my mind to the situation, my moich, my understanding. So I have to evaluate. I can constantly have to evaluate what the situation is. So therefore, let's say you have a particular emotion. You're feeling a little chesed. Then you want to balance it with a little gvura. And each of the sefirot become balanced because it's not just you being in the space of this particular emotion and you can't excavate. You can't extricate yourself out of that emotion. You're totally involved in that emotion, in that space, and you're stuck. But with mind, you can actually separate yourself from that emotion. And you can say, okay, at this point, I think now it's good for me to express kindness, even though I'm feeling anger, even though I'm feeling pain. But the right expression now, instead of being reactive, would be to be in a moichin space, in a mindful place. So then the sefirot start, instead of being independent, which would be shanim, singular, and each sefira, each expression is independent of each other. Now, when they're elevated to the place of moichin, they're elevated to the place of intelligence, so chachma is 1, but in chachma really there's 10, because each, in wisdom, you have wisdom to know, now I can express chachma, now I can express chesed, kindness, and now I can express gvura. The same thing also with understanding, bina. At this point, you have a good understanding that at this moment, the best way to live my life now is I can express this emotion or I can express the other emotion. So each emotion becomes interwoven with each other. They're no longer independent. This is what the Ari calls the Olam HaTikun, the world of Tikkun, not the world of Toya, of chaos. Chaos is when each sefira is independent from each other. Chesed doesn't get along with Gvura. That's the way we see it also in real life. If a person is feeling a lot of anger, you can't talk to them. If they don't have moichin, if they don't have intelligence, they don't have intellect, they're not mindful. But a person that becomes mindful of the situation and they don't want to live reactively, all of a sudden, you can actually have a conversation when a person is angry, even with yourself, if you're the person that's angry. Because what's happening now is that every emotion can be balanced and counterbalanced with another emotion. And this is what the Torah is saying, that we have to evolve from Sheva Shanim, from singular years, which is days of our youth, when we're younger, like children, when we are reactive, and we're completely dependent on our emotions. And our emotions dictate how we live our lives. And everything is just reactive. A higher way of living is to introduce moichin, which is a level of maturity. All of a sudden, it's not just, I'm just feeling anger, I'm just feeling pain, I'm just feeling love, but to evaluate the situation. And when you're evaluating the situation with your moichin, with your intelligence, it's no longer shanim, plural, because the midos, the attributes are no longer singular and independent from each other, but they become shana, they become a singular unit. They become one expression, because your mind is dictating to yourself and telling you how you should act. This can be on the level of pure moichin, of pure intelligence, which means that you're completely detached from your emotions, and it's pure moichin, pure intelligence. That's Esrim, that's the 20. That's when Chachma has 10 and Bina has 10. And then the highest level of living is Mea Shana, is 100 year. 100 singular year means that every single midah of your 10 midos, of your 10 expressions, from your Chachma, your wisdom, to your understanding, to your knowledge, to your expression of goodness, of kindness, of chesed, to gvura, to expression of restriction, of holding back, to tiferes and compassion, to netzach, which is victory, and pride, and a sense of confidence, the Hoid, which is humility and feeling grateful to the situation, and Yesod, which is connection, and Malchus, which is being receiver to life. All these 10 expressions are all interwoven within each other, and they're all interconnected. And that is the Me'asham. That is the goal. The goal is to be at the level of Keter, the level of Kesser, where every single emotion is controlled by other emotions, and you have enough moichin to understand, enough intelligence to understand how you're going to act in every situation. So it's never a reactive emotion. It's never I'm feeling this because I'm reacting to life, but you're actually always proactive. You're always choosing how you're going to live your life, and knowing which midah, which expression is the perfect midah to be expressed right now. Maybe at this point now, if you see your child playing with a knife, maybe at this point now you have to show kindness, but you also have to show a little gvur. You have to take away the knife. Because it's not just chesed or not just gvur. You can't just be upset at them or just love them and just let them play with it. Every single midah, every single way of interacting in life is completely interconnected. Every single sphere has an interconnectivity because of the moich, because of the mindfulness in a situation that allows for every sphere to have the other spheres within them. And that's what the Zohar is saying. That's why it starts, and it tells us that the years of Sarah's life were not only that she was like a 7-year-old, which is she was a child, and she had many different emotions and many different experiences, and she was reactive, which every child is, but she became more mature, and she became 20, which is a level of moichet, a level of intelligence, which that's what our sages tell us, that at 20 a person becomes full maturity, the final maturity of mind that a person has, their grasp of understanding of life is reached when a person is 20, until she reached the point of 100, which means that there's a fullness of her entirety that she knew and understood how every single emotion and every single situation demanded which emotion and which expression. Okay, that's the first thing we want to say, and we're going to move on to something else. Is it clear? Yeah. Okay. This is going to be a little bit more, I don't know if that was easy, but this is going to be a little more complicated, a little more in-depth. So, we have like this. Let's see. The Torah tells us, at the beginning of Chaya Sarah, that Chaya Sarah, the life of Sarah, which is 100 years, 20 years, 7 years, Sarah B'Kir Sarah, and Sarah passes on. She passes on in Kiras Arba. He Chevron. She passes on and she dies in Kiras Arba, which is Chevron. And then it says, Vayave Avram lispoid l'Sarah l'b'chais. And Avram comes to eulogize and to wail, to cry for Sarah. So where's Avram coming from? What does it mean that Avram is coming? Vayave Avram is coming from. It seems like Sarah and Avram are now separate. They're in separate locations. So Rashi in the classic commentary writes that Sarah is coming from Be'ersheva. Avram is coming from Be'ersheva. Avram is coming from Be'ersheva. Be'ersheva is the place where they lived. How do we know it's the place where they lived? Because after the story of the Akedah, it says that Avram returns to Be'ersheva. He returns back to Be'ersheva. So Avram is in Be'ersheva. And he's coming from Be'ersheva to Chevron, which in Israel, Be'ersheva is more to the south, which is close to in the Negev. And Chevron is more centered in Israel. So he's going from this location, from Be'ersheva to Chevron. Why is Sarah in Chevron? Why is Sarah in Chevron if they live in Be'ersheva? So all the commentaries ask this question, and there's many different interpretations. Why Sarah is in Chevron? Either because Sarah woke up in the morning of the Akedah, didn't see Avram and Yitzchak, so she figures maybe they went to Chevron because that was their summer home. It's cooler, so she goes to Chevron. That's what Cheskuni writes. Or Avram actually sent Sarah to Chevron before he went to the Akedah, like the Netziv writes. But either way, she passes away in Hebron, and Avram comes from Beersheba. Now, where is he coming from Beersheba? Where is he originally from Beersheba? Beersheba was that he came from the Akedah. He came from the binding of Yitzchak. He came from the Akedah. He comes Lisbod Lasar L'Bchaisa, to cry for her and to eulogize her. L'Bchaisa, incidentally, has a small chaf, a small letter chaf. So Balaturim says because she was old, so the crying was not so intense. The Magalamukha says actually the opposite, because Avram wanted her to live another 20 years, so she'd be 147. Her years would correspond to the chapters of Psalms. But the real question is, Avram is coming from the Akedah. That's really what the Torah is saying. He's coming from the place of the Akedah. He's coming from the binding of Isaac, from the binding of Yitzchak. Which means, existentially, he's coming from that place. Where is Yitzchak? This is the real question. Avram is the husband, and he's coming from the Akedah to be with his wife, who just passed away, and to bury her, and to cry for her, etc. But where is Yitzchak? Where is Yitzchak? So, our sages tell us, Chazal tell us in different midrashim, either Yitzchak is in the yeshiva Hashem Ve'ever, he's sitting and learning. Either Yitzchak is in Gan Eden, he's in paradise. The Alshach says maybe that Yitzchak was injured in the Akedah, so he's going to be healed. But it's a real question. The question is more, the depth of the question is, why isn't he come? Let's say, okay, so he's in yeshiva. So let him come to this. His mother passed away. It's a mitzvah to go kibbutz avim. To honor his mother, he has to be there for burial. And he's in Gan Eden, so let him come from a Gan Eden. What does it mean? Why doesn't he show up to his mother's funeral? Why is he not mentioned in his mother's funeral? It's a very, very puzzling question. Rabbeinu Yonah, one of the great sages in the 1300s, Rabbeinu Yonah of Gerona, writes on Masechtas Avos and Avos and Ethics of our Fathers, and Rabbeinu Yonah writes that we know that there are 10 nisyonos, that Avraham Avinu had 10 challenges. The first of the challenge was Lech Lecha, leave your father's home, your place of your birth, and go journey. What's the 10th Nisayan? What's the peak, the highest Nisayan? So, based on the Gemara in Sanhedrin, in the last chapter in Sanhedrin, the Gemara says that it seems that the highest level of Nisayan was Shloi Yemar, that you shouldn't say there was nothing in the first 9 challenges. The highest Nisayan was the Akedah. To offer to offer your child in the Akedah, that was the highest level, that was the biggest challenge. But Rabbeinu Yonah writes something else. Rabbeinu Yonah writes that the 10th Nisayan, the 10th challenge of Avram, and the highest challenge is this story, that he came to cry for his wife, and he buried his wife, and he bought a plot for his life, and he bought Parsha. This story of the burial of Sarah was the 10th Nisayan. So we have to understand, what does it mean? Why is this the 10th Nisayan? Why is this the 10th challenge or the highest challenge? So we have two questions here, maybe they're related to each other. Why is Yitzchak a no-show at his mother's own funeral? And why is this the Nisayan? Why is this the highest challenge for Avram? So we have to go back to the beginning. The beginning is, Hashem tells Avram, Lech lecha ma'aretzecha, leave your land. Now the word Lech lecha is very positive. What is Lech lecha? Lech means to go. Lecha, what does lecha mean? So Rashi brings up the name of the Medrash. Lecha means la'noscha, le'tevascha, means for your own pleasure, for your own benefit. Or lecha means to go, like Zohar says, go to yourself. Or the Badicheva says Lech lecha means go by yourself. But the word lecha is anyway, it's a puzzling word. What does it mean? So in Tikkun Zohar, the Zohar writes that lecha in numeric value is 50. Lamed is 30, chaf is 20, so the numeric value of lecha is 50. Hashem tells Avram, Lech lecha, go lecha. What does this mean? You should go to the level of 50. What's 50? So Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. passage, the verse that we say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Here, Israel, Hashem is one. That has 25 letters. Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusei Leil Vad, blessed you forever, in short, has 24 letters. Says the Zohar that will come a time when Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusei Leil Vad, the response that we say to Shema Yisrael, will be 25 letters. It won't be just Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusei, but it'll add a Vav, and it'll say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, U Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusei Leil Vad. That's what the Zohar says. What does this mean? So we know Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad means Hashem is one, means absolute monotheism. What does absolute monotheism mean? It doesn't mean only that there's one God, that Hashem is Echad. It means that there's only God. Hashem Echad means there's nothing else besides Hashem. Which conceptually means that the world is ayin, is nothing, and the only real existence is Hashem. So ayin, lamata ayin, lamayla yesh. Lamata means below, which means our creation is ayin, is nothingness, emptiness, is void of all things, has no real substance, and the only substance, the only real thing in the world is Hashem. That's Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That's called, in the language of the Zohar, it's called Yechuda Ilah, higher unity. Echad, it's one. Absence of every single thing, only oneness of Hashem. Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusei Leil Vad means that Hashem's presence, the light of Hashem, permeates creation for eternity, forever, which means that there is a world, there's this time, and this time is Leil Vad, is forever, which means it's the expression of Hashem's presence within this world, within the expression of Yesh, of existence. So again, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad means nothing exists besides Hashem. Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusei Leil Vad, which is the response, means I exist because I was created by Hashem. But I exist. So the world exists or doesn't exist. From the perspective of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, there is no existence. Existence is only God, only Hashem. From the perspective of Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusei Leil Vad, the world does exist, and the world was created by a creator. So Yesh, which is called existence, exists, and it's connected to the Ayin, which is conceptually something that's beyond us, which is the creator. These are the two perspectives. This is the way our consciousness functions in the world that we know it today. And it's an either-or question. Either it's Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, or it's one and there's no existence, or it exists. Or it is, or it isn't. Says the Zohar is saying something very complex and paradoxical. There will come a time that Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusei Leil Vad would not be the lower response of Shema Yisrael, will not be 24, but it will be U Baruch Shem. U Baruch Shem means that it will also be 25. That Das Elyon and Das Tachten, the higher unity and the lower unity, will both be understood to be a full expression. Both true. Kel Deus Hashem, they're both true. Both the perspective of Shema Yisrael and Baruch Shem. Not that one is lower than the next. And I'm not explaining this fully, but this is what we have to understand. So there are three perspectives. One is existence does not exist. That's step one. The second one, not step one, this is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is existence does exist and it's connected to a creator. The third one is that it exists and doesn't exist simultaneously. To phrase it a little different, one is that the world is a yesh existence, created by an ayin, which is infinite, infinity, the Ein Sof, infinite light. And it's called ayin, it's called nothingness because it's beyond our perception. That's one perspective. That's yesh, existence. The other higher paradigm is that the world is called ayin, it's nothing, exists, doesn't exist. Empty, there's no form, there's no existence. And the higher level is that the ultimate existence of the creator is expressed in existence. It's the Yesh Amiti. And I'll explain a little bit deeper how this actually is practically and what this actually means. We have to go back last week's Parsha, last week's portion, to this to show you something, and we'll see how this is understood. Last week's portion last week's story portion, in the beginning of the Parsha, says that Avram, the Parsha opens up that Vayero Hashem be'olanim mamre. Avram is Hashem appears to him, or it appears to him, like the Or Chaim writes, in the Olanim mamre, which means that the revelation is completely to his essence. V'hu yoshev Pesach Oyel, and he's sitting on the door. He's sitting by the door, by the opening of the door. Then the verse says like this: he lifts up his eyes, Vayar, and he sees. And what does he see? And there are three men standing above him. So let's use the imagery very deeply. He's sitting by his door, which means he's in a state of hisyashvus, settled, stillness, sitting. He lifts up his eyes and he sees. What does he see? That there are three people standing. Nitzavim olav. The standing means that there's no movement. Itnua, there's no movement. So he's in a state of no movement because he's sitting. And when he sees, he sees that these three people are standing. Who are these three people? Who are these three people? So we know later from the story, these are the three malachim, these are the three angels. Now angels are the opposite of sitting, of standing. We know that the chayas is zotzav v'shoiv, that the angels are constantly moving. And if you go later to Parshas Vayetze, Pasuk Chavches, Peir Chavches, in Peis. When the verse talks about the dream of Yaakov, of Jacob, the Torah tells us that he's having a dream, and he has a dream. He sees a ladder. The ladder it's planted on the ground, and its head and its peak reaches the heavens. And and he sees that the angels are moving back and forth, because the concept of an angel, like the concept of chayas, of the chiyas of the world, the energy of the world, is that it's in a constant state of ratzav shuv, returning and going back. They're oilam yordim, they're moving back and forth. V'ine Hashem nitzav olav. And then he sees that Hashem, on top of the movement of the angels, he sees that Hashem is standing still. Which means that stillness is the opposite of this world. What is the definition of reality, of physical reality? How do we define creation, physical reality? Definition of creation, because it's a creation, means that there's a beginning and there's an end, there's a middle. So the definition of creation is that there's a movement, there's progress. It's moving. There's a yesterday, there's a today, and there's a tomorrow. That's one way, the way we define creation. The life force that's coming into this world is also bechinas chayas v'shoiv. The chayas is coming down into this world, is in a constant state of giving and returning, going back and returning. Movement is a definition of the world, because movement is, everything in this world is moving. That's the definition of the world, of existence, is that it's moving and constantly changing. So oil of yardim and movement and tnua is inherent to creation. The basic building blocks of creation, what the Rishonim and Sefer Yitzir call the Yisodas, the foundations of the world, is Eish, Ruach, Mayim. These are moving things. This is the world of tnua, the world of movement. And here, Avram is sitting by the tent, and he sees that the angels are actually standing. Then it says, Vayar, again, and he sees, but he just said it saw. It says, Vayisayin, he lifts up his eyes, and he sees, and there's three angels standing on top of him. Okay, so he saw the angels. Then it says again, Vayar, he sees again. And now, what's the second seeing? So Rashi says, he sees means he sees, he understands. But the truth is, and I'm shocked on a deeper level, what's the seeing? He already saw. He saw that there's shlosh enough and so on. He sees that there are already three people standing. But then it says, Vayar's across him, then he sees, and he runs after them. Before, they're standing on top of him, which means that tzavim means there's no movement. And now he's running. Where's he running to? If they're right on top of him, where's he running? It doesn't make any sense. If he saw them as standing right on top of him, which means everything is still, so why all of a sudden he's running towards them? They're standing right on top of him. And we see clear that also the Torah is making a distinction between standing and running. There's nitzavim and there's vayar. It's this standing and running. And this is actually what's happening now to Avram, is a transformation of Avram as a person. In the previous portion before Vayera, he experiences the milah. He experiences the bris, the covenant, the circumcision. Which means Avram reaches a point which we'll call Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. He reaches a point of the recognition of the absolute oneness of Hashem. We're in everything and everything. Therefore, how does it express? It's expressed in him circumcising himself. That even his body is a Merkava. Even his body is completely unified with the Creator, and his Metzias, his existence, his Yeshus, ceases to be. So when his Yesh, his expression in this world, his manifestation in this world ceases to be, how does he perceive the world? He starts to perceive the world as still. He enters into a place of ayin, of emptiness, of nothingness, and therefore everything ceases to be. It doesn't mean that things are no longer moving, but to him they're no longer moving. He sees stillness. A person reaches that state. Again, the first state is you're completely involved in this world, completely connected to the drama and to the life of this world, this constant movement, this constant change, and one day you're happy, and one day you're sad, and one day this happens to you and makes you happy, and the next day this happens to you and you feel sad, and you're constantly in different states, and there's different colors and different imagery and different impressions and different sounds and different tastes, and you're in the fullness of this creation. That's step number one, and everyone's born in this way. This is the way we're born. This is the expression of Baruch Shem Kol Mechusel Levad, that Hashem's presence is within the creation. Hashem created us in this way, and this is the world that we live in. We have to navigate in this four-dimensional universe, and this is the way we navigate in this world, through the experience of this world. Then a person has a higher epiphany, a higher level of understanding, and they reach a level of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. When a person says Shema Yisrael, this passage, when a person says it during prayer, during davening, so the Shalom Kadosh Shema, you actually have to imagine yourself as if you're giving your life over to Hashem, Mesiras Nefesh, completely let go of everything. What does it mean, let go of everything? Because you're not letting go of everything. You still have your full life, and you don't actually physically have to give over your life. It means that you let go of all the yeshus of existence. It doesn't matter to you at this point if you're eating something that you really enjoy or something you don't enjoy completely. It doesn't matter to you whether the sun is shining or it's raining outside. What happens externally in the world doesn't really matter to you. You're in a place of ayin, and also in a place what the Mukabbalim call hishtavos. You're in a place of equanimity. And it doesn't matter to you anymore, anything. Everything looks still. You're in a perfect place of harmony with yourself. You're in perfect state of harmony of dveikus with Hashem in the state of ayin, and the world stops functioning in a normal state. Which means the world goes on, everything's happening the way it always happens, but you're no longer caught up in the drama of this universe. You're in a place of ayin, and in that place of ayin, of emptiness, there's no longer any expressions of tzura, of form, and you're totally and always in a perfect state. This is what Avram reaches on the first level. Vayar, he lifts up his eyes, he sees that even angels, which the angels is the strongest definition of Chaya Sarah, that it's movement, even movement is still. It's not that there's no movement, but the movement to him is still. This is level number 2. Then he lifts up his eyes and he sees even something deeper. Vayar is across him. He lifts up his eyes and he sees the yichud, the unification between Shema Yisrael and Baruch Shem. He said the yichud between Shema Yisrael and Baruch Shem is the level of 50. 50 is when it's Baruch Shem and Baruch Shem, which means that he recognizes that he has to go back into this world, not because he's reactive to the world that's around him, and not because he's caught up into the drama of this world, but he's boiche b'shir zimmer. He's choosing to be back into this world. Why? Because that's what Hashem wants from him. The first level is you're stuck in this world. And this is your reality. And you're trying to make sense out of this world. And you're starting also maybe to connect with Hashem. That's Baruch Shem. The higher level is that nothing exists anymore. So it's all the same. It doesn't matter. This is the Akedah. That's Mesiras Nefesh of the Akedah. It's the going up of the Akedah. That he can offer his only child. On the Akedah is the level of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That's the Akedah. Doesn't matter. Life, death. There's no life, there's no death. Everything's all the same. That's why when Avram is going to the Akedah, he's about to get to the place of the Akedah, what does he say? Vani vanar necha ad koi. Me and the lad will go until koi. What is koi? Chaf He. 25. He says that we're going to get to the Akedah, we're going to go to the point of the 25, which is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. We're going to get to the top of the mountain. Nechad koi. But then Avram adds something, and he says, "V'nishtachem v'nishuv aleichem," and then we're going to prostrate ourselves and we're going to return. He didn't know what he was saying consciously, but he said prophecy. Why? Because Avram understood that the point of Lech Lecha, the beginning of the journey, was not to get to the top of the mountain to sacrifice all of life. But he understood that the point of the journey was to actually return back into this world again. He has to get to the point of total Mesiras Nefesh, total self-sacrifice, to the point of Ayin, where nothing matters anymore, and from the place that nothing matters, to choose that things should matter again. This is what Vayar Vayoris L'Krosam. This is what the Torah is saying. The first Vayar is Ayin. The first Vayar is when he sees, he sees everything is still, everything is present, nothing's moving. Then Vayar, he sees a higher level of seeing, and then Vayar Tzakrosim, he goes and he feeds his guests. He does a Chnassas Archim. He actually goes and feeds the people that need food. And in this estimation, at least he thinks they're still maybe humans, but he's going to feed them. And he's doing Gedolah Chnassas Archim, which means it's greater to do a Chnassas Archim to bring in guests, even though the presence of the Shekhinah level is when everything's Ayin. You're in a state of Dveikus, a state of unity with Hashem, and the world stops. By Yard Tzakasim, he goes down and he goes to run after them. So he enters the world of Ritzah, of Aretz. Aretz, the word Eretz, earth, comes from the word Ratz, running, movement. He goes back into the world of movement. So he starts from the world of movement, he enters the world of stillness, and then returns by choice to the world of movement, because that's what the Kabbalah, that's the intention of creation. That's what Hashem told him at the beginning of his journey. Lech Lecha, reach the 50th level, not the 49th. Now we can understand where Yitzchak is, and what the Torah is telling us, and why the Nisayan is the highest Nisayan. This is the 10th Nisayan. This is the 10th challenge of Avram. The reason why it's the 10th challenge of Avram, because Vaniva Nar Necha Koi, we should get to the top of the mountain, which is the 9th Nisayan of Avram, is to get to the 49th level. To get to the level, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, 25, Ad Koi, to the expiration of self. I don't exist. My child doesn't exist. Nothing exists. It's only you. And it doesn't matter. Life, death, good food, bad food, drama, joy, music, color, nothing matters to me. Everything's Ayin. So whatever you want from me. That's the 9th level of Nisa. That's the 9th challenge. The 10th challenge is Avram to come back down. Come back. Mibe'er Shav, Avram comes. Avram, listen. Sorry, Avram's coming. What does he mean coming? He's coming down the mountain. He's coming down from the place of Ad Koi. He's coming down to recognize that his wife passed away. And that's real. Why is it real? Because Hashem created it. And Hashem wants it to be real. And Hashem wants you to come, when a person passes away, certainly your wife, Hashem wants you to come and to cry for her. And to wail for her. And to do a hesped for her. And to bury her. That's a mitzvah. So he comes back from the top of the mountain, and he comes back into life, into the world. And that's fascinatingly something very interesting that happens, is that from after Yaakov, Hashem doesn't talk to Avram anymore. There's no longer a conversation that God has with Avram any longer. Why? Why doesn't Hashem have a conversation with Avram anymore? Because Avram got it. There's no longer a conversation. Means Hashem is telling you, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do the other thing. Lech Lecha, go here, do this, come here. There's nothing anymore to do. You got it. And what is Avram occupied in this whole Parsha? To marry off his children. To bury his wife, to marry his children. He enters back into this world from a place of choice. And now we can understand where Yitzchak is. When Chazal tells us that Yitzchak was in Gan Eden, or he was in paradise, or he was in the Yeshiva Sheva Ever, it means that Yitzchak didn't yet come down the mountain. Yitzchak was still in the level of Ad Koi. He didn't yet complete his journey. He was still in the place of Ayin. And the story with Avram is when Avram says, we see that Eliezer says, we're going to make a chesed with Adoni, going to do a kindness with my master to bring him a wife. The whole process of this, the bringing of a wife to Yitzchak, was he shouldn't be l'suach l'sada, that he was alone in the fields, which is a level of Yitzchak, which is dveikus and ayin, and to bring him back into this world and back into the physical reality. And that's what Rivka accomplishes in this week's Parsha. So this is a little bit of an insight to what is going on a little bit in the Parsha of Chaya Sarah. Okay, I don't know if we should want to take questions, or this is...
Yeah.
Okay. Good Shabbos, everybody.
We have one question.
Yeah.
We have a question from Morris. It says, Rabbi, but then why does Hashem tell Moshe to remain with him? Ba'ata po amod imadi.
But then Moshe then goes back down. It's not permanent. Moshe has to come back down. It's not the permanent state. Moshe eventually comes down from the mountain as well, right? Comes back from the mountain. Moshe is a different level. I don't want to get into this more in depth, but Moshe is actually ayin. Moshe is actually ayin. That's why the words Moshe, Mem Shin Hey, his name, if you spell out the word Mem Shin Hey, which is Mem is Mem and Mem, Shin is Shin Yud Nun, and Hey is Hey Hey, you have actually the word Ma'ayin. I mean, Hey is Hey Aleph. The filling letters of the word Moshe is actually Ma'ayin. Moshe comes from the water, comes from ayin. That's why Moshe says Ma'ayin Libasar. And Moshe only reaches the 50th level in a different madrega, different state, but Moshe reaches the 50th level in death. That's why it says that when Moshe was buried, where was he buried? In Har Novoi. Har Novoi. What's Har Novoi? Har, the mountain of Nun Boy, the mountain that had the 50th level. That's why Chazal tell us in the Gemara and Sotah says that the people on the bottom of the mountain, it seemed that he was on top of the mountain. And the people on the top of the mountain, it seems like he was on the bottom of the mountain, right? This is what it says about Moshe's burial site. What is the depth of what Chazal are telling us? Is that he was in both places. He was on top and on the bottom. If you think he was only on top, you're wrong. He's also on the bottom. If you think he's only on the bottom, no, you're wrong. He's also on the top. That's the 50th level. The 50th level is to be on top and the bottom simultaneously. The Shema Yisrael and the Baruch Hashem Kohen Mechus Levad. The yichud of this two madregas, these two levels.
Okay. Everyone should have a good Shabbos, and we will see you next week for another live question and answer. And please God, another shiur before Shabbos for next week's Parsha Shabbos.